Good morning and welcome. I'm Bob Pace, your host. I'm here to talk about CPS and get back your children. You know, um, that's a hard one to talk about every day. I try to make the podcast a little bit different and so forth. Um, I mentioned the word CPS. For those you don't know, it stands for Child Protection Services. It's a branch of the social services that the federal government has instituted to protect our children from neglect and abuse. It's also supposed to bring the family back together. Another part of the service besides neglect and abuse for children is family reunification. That is so important, and that's what's really lacking right now in CPS is the idea that the family can be reunified. There's several ways you can react with this show. One, you can text in a comment. All you do is find it. We're transmitted on. You find us on Facebook, and we're broadcasting uh, on YouTube with an application called Steam Yard. And I'm talking to you from Southern California. And as I mentioned, texting a comment is one way to interact with the show. All I ask you is to give me your name and the city and state you're from. Also, if you're from another country, that's fine. It's great because we do have countries listening in. They do have CPS problems on either the country and the city. So if you put your name and your location, be much appreciated. Also, I need to know what your allegations are. If you feel comfortable telling them, that's fine. And what children are involved, and whether you have what kind of relationship, a partnership, a marriage, I don't know what kind of relationship, and that all helps me understand your case. So when you ask me questions, I can try to help you. I'm not a attorney. I'm not an attorney, but I am a loving father, a dad, a husband who for 14 years have been fighting CPS. 5 years was in the beginning with the allegations, and 3 years when they stole my children and based on allegations that weren't true, and put me, my wife, and children all through hell and ruined my life. I lost my home because of them. You know, um, there's a lot of things I lost because of CPS. There's no family reunification in my case, and my Constitution and civil rights were so badly violated. It was really bad. So many things I see every time I talk on the show. What they did was wrong. Okay, besides commenting, you can also talk live on the show. You can be a guest right now. We have no guest. We had a guest scheduled, but somehow they've disappeared. But if you want to be a guest on the show and talk about your case or talk about anything related to CPS, we much appreciate. I think a different person talking helps a little bit. To do so, all you have to do is call in 626-698-0990. That's my office phone. It's good for an hour. The show is on 7 days a week, twice a day, at 10 o'clock in the morning Pacific Standard Time for 1 hour, and at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for 1 hour. And so, um, I love to have people talk, and it helps other people, and other people can listen and help you, and so forth. So, um, that's your chance to talk. If you feel like you're not ready to talk, which is understandable, it's hard sometimes to talk and be on a show and everything. You can schedule another time you like to talk. All you have to do is call 888-888-6582. That's my other office phone. And when you speak to them, tell them that Bob Pace sent you, and that you can um, schedule a time that works best for you. You can say, I want to pick the Friday show or this Wednesday show, the morning show, the afternoon show. You got 14 shows to pick from. So I'd love for you to schedule a time to be my guest. I'd love to hear about your case and how I could help you and everything. That's 888-888-6582. Now, one of the first rules I'm going to give you is that you need to get an attorney. And why do you need to get an attorney? Well, open heart surgery requires a doctor, and what you're doing here is just as bad as open heart surgery. You'll find that the social services and CPS is very corrupt, very disrespectful. They're not transparent. They dupe and they trick and they lie, and they do all kinds of crazy stuff. And it's sad because they aren't the agency that they're supposed to be. They're not doing the directives they're supposed to do. So it is kind of hard there. So as I mentioned, with this being so hard and complex, you need a doctor. Well, in this field, is called a lawyer. The lawyer in dependency court. It's family law, dependency law, juvenile law. It's where kids under 18 and so forth. It's part of the superior court, but it's called dependency court, and it hears cases about family law, family court, so forth. And by you being involved, you need this expert doctor. Well, that's a lawyer. And right now, the law firm that's putting this, that produces this show, is Vincent W. Davis Associates. It's a good law firm. It's got many lawyers doing all kinds of legal questions and problems and so forth. But what you want is you want a dependency lawyer. You want a family lawyer and somebody that has fought CPS and won their cases against CPS and also will get your children back. This lawyer at the law firm is Vincent W. Davis. He's been doing it for a long time. He's also a trial attorney. He knows CPS. He's fought CPS and won. He has got back children. He got 2 of my 3 back. So I'm telling you, he's good. I used him. Vincent Davis, fortunately, is offering something that most people should take advantage of. He's offering free legal advice for a half an hour up to an hour of strategies of how to fight CPS and get your children back. Now, there you go. Right now, you're seeking help because most of you guys are in really bad straits financially. And I know it's hard. It's hard no matter how much money you make. And this takes a lot of money. It took me selling my home to fight CPS. It's really sad. It's changed my whole life and everything. And they haven't restored my family like it was before they interrupted and stole them. But this attorney, Vincent Davis, he can win your case. All you have to do is call 888-888-6582. Get that free consultation for 30 minutes up to an hour. Make sure you tell them that Bob Pace sent you when you talk to the office. Also, when you talk to Mr. Davis, make sure you tell him that Bob Pace sent me too. It's really important that you get this attorney because you're going to go through a nightmare with CPS. At least I did. It was terrible. It was so terrible. So rule number 1 is you get yourself an attorney. You think you got an attorney because you've gone to the dependency court. They hear your dependency plan out and so forth. They say they'll provide you a public defender. Well, I tried a public defender. I tried a half a dozen of them. They're just no good. One guy told me he had to replace them 37 times before he finally got one that would do something. And they're young lawyers, fresh out of school, with very limited experience and a caseload of 20 or more clients. And with having a caseload of that many people, the quality time they have for each case is very limited. Also, they're in friends with the social workers, attorneys, and stuff. In fact, the whole courtroom is because they go golfing or have meals together and stuff. And so, probably a lot of favors are owed or whatever. But it's it's it is really rough. There's no question about that. So I think after you talk to Vincent W. Davis, you'll retain him. He's worth every penny of it. I did. I used him. He got back my children, so I'm glad I did. Um, you're trying to figure out what CPS. I don't know how far along your case is. The people in the room, I don't know, what your case is about, but all I know is that within 24 hours they have to investigate the allegations. Now, the allegations are presented in two ways: one by lay people, one by professionals. If a professional sees a child that's neglected or abused, they'll report them to CPS. They're required to by law. That goes for every other professional person, like policemen, doctors, those kinds of things. Um, um, in my case, the allegations were false, and that's the sad part. Because right now, the allegations are frivolously said for the person's own means, meaning that the family members, and these were my wife's side, that are reporting these false allegations, were making my life like hell. It was terrible. Um, it was really sad to see a government agency, fall apart and lie and cheat their way with your children. They illegally took my kids from me and my wife, and that was bad. That was wrong, and they violated my, uh, you know, civil rights and constitutional rights in this case. There's no question about that. When the allegations came in, I, you know, I did not know what really to have to do. And so for 5 years, I kept putting it off and put it off, meaning that I showed them the house, which you're not supposed to allow them in. In fact, there's two other rules I want to give you right now. Rule number two is you have a notebook, some type of way of recording things about your case. You're going to find out that your case may go longer than the 48 days that's supposed to take to complete your case. Um, they have 24 hours with the alleged complaint to investigate, and then 45 days to close out the case. So, you know, if you end it longer than that, then they've done something, they've tricked you into something, or it is wrong. It is so, so, so wrong. So, these allegations are, are presented by two kinds of people: professionals and lay people. And the professionals are like your doctors, police, nurses, teachers, counselors. Anybody with a profession like that is required by law to report any abuse or neglect. And that could be looking at someone's bruise marks all over them, or maybe the clothes are too baggy to wear, or maybe they look withdrawn, starving, or fall asleep in school, things like that nature. Um, but the sad part is that if I look at the other part of the picture there, that in my case, the common lay people were using CPS to alienate uh, my parent, my wife, and me from our kids. That was really sad. That was so, so sad that they were able to do that. And it's sad enough when you have family relatives that want to disrupt your life instead of help you out in your life. So the other kind of reporting person is the lay person, and that could be your friends, it could be acquaintances, it could be family members. Well, it was my family members that were trying to tell my wife and I that we weren't taking care of our kids. They would say falsify things like there was no natural gas paid, no for cooking, and no electricity for lighting, and etc. They would say all these things that weren't true, and I would have to sit there with my copies of my utility bills where they're paid, and straighten all that. It's just more of a hassle for them. You'll find out that Child Protection Services is a form of public. Um, it was a form of a public discredit from your children. Like, why this alienation? And alienation is wrong. You should never alienate anybody. A lot of parents do it in custody battles where they do one parent against the other parent. You don't want to alienate your parents from your kids or make your kids think bad of you, and that's wrong to do so. Um, so in my case, I had these allegations coming in, and they weren't true at all, and so I disproved them and everything. So for 5 years, they're doing that. This is so weird. If I knew about the 45-day, I would insist the case be closed. Um, I can understand the 24 days the case to be open, but that didn't happen. That did not happen. So I had to fight these allegations for 5 years. And what's so sad about this whole thing is that I had a perfect storm brewing in my life. In 2007, the banks were collapsing. They're falling apart. Why? They're giving out too many loans easy to people, qualifying means they're called predatory loans, meaning that the income is jacked up and the information they submitted is false. And I had a predatory loan. I was one of those people that was saddened with a very expensive mortgage to take care of my family. And all they wanted is the bonus for financing and then to refinance 3 months later for more bonuses. So um, that's how these people were able to take away my children. It was so bad because they believe all allegations are true. See, it's so different when you go to other court cases. You're innocent till you're proven guilty. But in CPS, you're guilty until you're proven innocent. Just backwards. It's stupid and it's wrong. And it's got to be changed. There's no question about that. Um, what I was doing at the time, uh, I was fighting these allegations. Well, when I told you the perfect storm was brewing and the banks were collapsing, it also affected my retirement of 40 years. It was cut in half. So, one, my retirement's cut in half. Two, I had a predatory loan. And then three, um, the banks stopped. Um, the banks were so bad that they hurt me so. And I had this storm brewing so bad. And here I am, half my 40 years of retirement gone with a predatory loan. And then bang, I get laid off at age 60. That's the worst effect to be, is to be laid off at age 60. I tell you, it's hard to get a job. And then as soon as my in-laws found out that I was laid off, that's when they started their push to steal our children from by giving a false roost to CPS. And I think that's totally wrong. the thing that I didn't realize the importance of my rule number one, an attorney. Something should get there. Now, rule number two is a notebook. You want to keep track of your notes because these may go on for years. They don't go necessarily 45 days. And with this notebook, you want to, put down the date and time and what people were involved, the social workers, your children, you, policemen, or whatever. And then you want to put the initial, incident. What was the incident about? Oh, they told my children, they came to my home, or whatever the case be. And then you want to have the outcome. What was the final outcome of this incident? And that may take you months or years to fill out, but at least you have this information so you can refer back to it 6 months later because you'll forget so much. I know you don't forget about the loss of your children. That that's great. But it is so important to keep track of notes and so forth. The third rule, and the most important rule, besides getting attorney rule number one, is to say no to CPS workers, no to the police. You don't have to answer them. You don't need to talk to them. Um, you The reason being why I'm saying this is I allowed them into my home, and they used things that they felt was extreme necessity to remove my children. You see, when they do your home inspection, they're going to look for everything. They're going to look for anything that could endanger their children. Then they're going to exaggerate and stretch it on and on. They're going to exaggerate it and everything. Um, CPS will not be your friend. They will dupe you into thinking they are. They'll dupe you and say, "Oh, we do family reunification," but they don't. And they'll set up a trap to steal your children. Why is all that so important to them? It's $1 billion business. They get so much money per child per month till they're 18. It's a lot of money. It's the only agency I know that can do legally child trafficking. What I mean by that is they'll take the children from you and mess up your life and their life and so forth. They have no care or compassion for people. And it's sad because social workers are needed and protection of kids who neglect or abuse is important. Now, abuse is defined in several ways. There's physical abuse, emotional abuse, and sexual abuse. That's kind of the generalization because I know each of them probably have a lot of details about that. But that abuse can really be detrimental on you. There's also could be, um, domestic violence, which is the physical abuse, or it could be the verbal abuse. And the verbal abuse is such a hard thing on kids when they see the parents fighting. And I don't mean the parents getting physical, but they're using harsh words and meanest things. The kids lay alone in their beds at night hearing that, or come downstairs and hear it, or see it stuff. You cannot argue with your spouse or partner. You need to put that aside, take a time out if it's heated, and regroup and come back to it. But verbal abuse is something that is really tragically in with the kids because it does no good. It rots them. It makes them do crazy stuff. So what you need to do is um, is to be strong and stand up to them, which you're doing by fighting them back. now. Um, so, um, besides verbal abuse, of course, is the physical abuse, and that's where they hit a child excessively or hurt a child, the bruise marks, unnecessary corporate punishment, those kinds of things. And lastly, there's the worst one, which is sexual abuse, where they exploit a child either through pornography or prostitution, or self gratification. And so those are the abuses. The neglect is when you don't feed them, you don't house them, you don't take them to school, you neglected them. That's sad. That should not be happening. So you have, you know, physical abuse and verbal abuse. That's abuse. And then you have the neglect. And that could also be drugs you're taking. You leave them laying around or you take them in front of your children. That's wrong. They don't need to see that. They don't need to know about that until they're 21. So with neglect, it can be really hard. They will try to alienate your kids. CPS alienation is bad and bad for your kids. It's not healthy or anything else. And they do so because they need the money. They need the money. And my social worker was the worst. I mean, she was fresh out of school. She didn't have a college degree, which I think they should have a college degree. They don't have a certificate or license. All they are is working the job that they worked for a period of time, and they have been mentored by anybody, meaning that they have not seen how the person has experienced handled cases. Right away, they're supposed to do family reunification. They also think they're clinical psychiatrists, which is far from the truth. They need to go through a special professor to do that. So they're going to fabricate, make up stories to keep you and your kids in their custody into their home. So I really feel bad that you guys are going through so much pain. Um, and my case, I keep referring to my case. Again, if someone would like to talk, I'd love to have them. But in my case, they used deception big time. They enlisted the help of the local police, and the local police were duped into thinking that it was necessary for me to open my home and so forth. I did tell you, I talked about that rule number 3, not talking to them and uh, and not leaving your house. They need a warrant to go in your home if you do not give permission. They need a warrant to take your child away. So, and those warrants are issued by a judge and signed, and they're done usually Monday through Friday. You don't want to have one of your aunts. You don't want them to come in or talk to them because they'll be bad. So, that warrant is the only mechanism that protects you. And it has to be signed by a judge. And judges don't work on the weekend. So if they have a warrant, not necessary, they have it filled out or have it finished. So you have to stay put. Rule number three: your home is your castle. Now, in my case, they duped me because they they knew that I picked up my son every day from school. So all they did is follow me. The detective did, and then he enlisted the help of a black and white policeman to pull me over, which they did, and then to follow him home. And there he was standing with CPS has definitely affected because I was forced to go home by the detective because I thought to police, I thought I was supposed to. And with that rule number one, no attorney, I was helpless. And so I show up in my home, and there is three social workers, five firemen, two code enforcement, two police in uniform, and the detective. All want to get in my home. I live in a private, neighborhood. This was unreal to me that they want to invade my home and they didn't have proper identification. I didn't know about that. And they must have been sincere because they've been trying for 5 years. And in the past, I have lived in my home and they didn't find anything. So this time they thought they would. And I guess with all those people, they thought, oh, something big disaster is going to happen. Something big and disaster is going to happen, I guess. I don't know. They went in the home, they didn't find anything of an importance, but they did say that the my parents' belongings that were stacked and furniture stacked because they were in the process of dying, and that was the other part of my perfect storm. Because after CPS was investigating, my parents said they're dying. They need my help to liquidate their home and get their stuff given away to family members. They wanted it, if not, then get rid of it. So in doing so, I put them in my home. I first tried to put them on the garage apron outside and come with tarp, but the private association said no, you can't. So I had to put everything in the house and what left in the house and some in the garage and the porch, front porch and the yard. So when they got in there, they saw this stuff, and right away they said, "Oh, you are doing neglect. There is a possibility that these boxes may fall over, the furniture may fall over and harm your child." I didn't agree with that, and that was wrong. That really was wrong. Um, that day, they took all three of my children. They thought it was so extreme that my parents' belongings would endanger the kids. So extreme. They weren't interested. I lost my job. They weren't interested in helping me. Maybe they could pay for the storage units or send some extra guys or something to help me. Code enforcement found problems with the gate. It was too loose. They said that your landscaping needed trimming up. Well, those are repairable things. That's not hard to do. But to make a motion out of this terrible backdrop was so bad. So, with them taking my children that night, my wife and I drove to the shelter that they're in. We didn't expect it to be as bad as it was, but we find out that there's a prison right next to the shelter. It's next to dependency courts. It was dirty, overcrowded, food was terrible, and they had trouble with bees and a beehive outside, so the kids weren't safe from playing. There was no sign that they would be a risk, and they were. CPS is a risk. They did abuse my children, and they also neglected my children. There's no question they did both of those things, and they should have been, you know, called in by the judge. The judge could have done a lot to fix this case and so forth. Oh, we are human. Hello there. Good afternoon. And not calling in right now at an appointment. Okay, I'm glad to hear from you, human. This is one of the people that does comments that's on my show. There's about 5 or 6 of you regularly that come in. I'm glad to have you there. Um, so the next step with CPS was to um, have a safety plan for your children. What that means, a safety plan is where you're going to put your children while they take them away. Now, I want you to hear about a very important uh, code. There's a thing called Welfare Code 300, and it's B, Section B. And this is what I should have, if I had an attorney, fight on, because right away they violated my constitutional rights. A child would come within the jurisdiction of juvenile court is considered to be a person, a child of the court. A child comes under Welfare and Institution Code 300B. If the child has suffered, this is really important here. If the child has suffered or there's substantial risk, the child will suffer serious physical harm or illness as a result of the failure or inability of his or her parent or guardian to adequately supervise or protect the child, or by the inability of that parent or guardian to provide regular care for the child due to the parent or guardian's mental illness, development disability, or substance abuse. The child shall be continued to be a child pursuant to the subdivision as long as necessary to protect the child from risk of suffering serious physical harm, illness. Now, I'm telling you, when these social workers pointed out that my parents' belongings could cause neglect to the children, could possibly hurt them or something, they thought it was extreme enough. Now, yes, I had my parents' furniture and boxes and stuff. I was sorting through it and shipping it to relatives and things like that. But it was not serious. There was no illness. I mean, you read this family code and you say, well, what are these CPS workers thinking about? It's really wrong. Look up Family Code 300. It will tell you a lot of what they need to do to take them, and they got to build up evidence so they go to that dependency hearing about your children and so forth. Now, you know, there are three elements for jurisdiction under this section 300 subsection B. One is neglect conduit by the parent in one of its specific forms. Neglect conduct by parent. What was I doing that was so bad there? Um, Two, causation, and then three, serious physical harm or illness to the child or significant risk of such harm or illness. So I read this family code. I'm trying to understand how they're able to get away with these things. And they lie. You, as a parent, don't not know what they are doing or what they're taking. You're a really stranger to this world. That's why it's so important, rule number one, to have it there. Yeah, I know. We are human. You can't afford a attorney. Um, that is the hardest thing to do. I had to sell my home, and to get money I'd use for retirement and everything. So it was really 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 hard um, to come up with money for an attorney. That's probably one of the stickiest parts of fighting CPS. Most of you can't afford an attorney. I couldn't afford an attorney. I had to sell my home and use whatever resources I had. Half my retirement was gone. I had inheritance money because my parents were dying. Um, I didn't have a job. I'm looking for a job. They're not interested in help you or doing family reunification. It's really distressing when they do so. And so they're trying to get the case to go to dependency trial to set up a plan to eventually take away my children. That's what their goal is. It's $1 billion business. The social workers do not have a certificate or license to do what they're doing. They don't even have the college experience or college degree is not required to be a social worker. And on top of that, they are only interested in the bonus that they get for keeping your children in their custody. I'm talking a real big bonus. So I learned this because every time I saw the social worker, it says, "See my new Gucci purse. See, see what clothes I bought with it, my eyelashes, my makeup, everything." They're more interested in getting the bonuses by keeping our children. And they had no background to do what they're doing. It's a very difficult experience to have someone involved that doesn't know what they're doing. It's they don't even follow their handbook. They have a handbook, by the way. It's called the dog book. And in the dog book, let me see if I still have it here. I'm trying to find it here. Okay. Okay. I'm looking up this dog book. I'll find it here in a second. Hmm. Okay, we're looking and looking and looking. I'll find it. We're looking for the CPS's handbook, is what we're looking for. It'd probably be quicker for me um, to probably type in the search than look through my history. I usually have them loaded up there, but for some strange reason I didn't. So I don't know what happened to them. Um, hmm. Okay. Okay. Geez, it's taking forever here. Okay, we got to find it here. Where is it now? You'll find the handbook for welfare. They have a service manual, and it's in California.government in the Department of Social Services. And it's in Division 31 and Chapter 31 through 100. And it's called the Child Welfare Service Manual and what they can do and not do. That should help you. But there's a handbook they don't even follow. Now, parents who make mistakes can improve and regain custody of their children in dependency courts. So there are mistakes that parents make in taking care of their children, but it is doable. It is fixable. I don't want anybody out there to not think it isn't. You know, um, when a parent does something that results in social workers knocking on the door, it often leads to their children being taken away by the state. This mistake could be anything from spanking their kid with a belt to getting in a fight with their significant others in front of the kids. If you end up facing the loss of your child in child dependency court, you may believe you never regain custody of your children. In most cases, with the proper legal guidance, I mean that, getting a lawyer, you can regain legal custody of your children. The dependency court is designed to protect children from abuse by their parents or legal guardians. If a petition is filed in dependency court, and that is 388, that petition I'm talking about is 388, the lawyer for the social workers called the county council will file a petition to the court. They have another petition they'll do to take legal custody from you. You see, this is why you need an attorney, because they're going to be filing petitions. You can file a petition. Your petition you file is a 388. I don't know what the petition they file to take your children away from you. And so you have a right for a lawyer prior to beginning your first court hearing. But what they do is they give you a public defender that is contaminated, that has 20 or more cases. He's a friends of the social worker attorney, friends of the judge. In fact, the dependency court, I was shocked that it's even a court system. It's a kangaroo court. It's where you have a judge. In our case, our judge was not even qualified. Our judge was, background was in car claims, collision claims, property damage, those kinds of things, and it um, certainly was not in the family reunification or how to deal with children or parents in there. So you have so many marks against you, and I tried using a public defender, and it was a joke. And this is from firsthand knowledge. And also, I'm speaking with a lot of people across the country that feel the same way. It is a terrible thing what this public defender will do for you, because you're on the line. And, if I knew what I knew now, day one, when CPS came knocking, I would have called the attorney and say, what am I supposed to do? And I don't know where these allegations are coming from, or I don't know if they're not true or anything like that. So And I would have tried to hire an attorney. I would have done things, take a lien on my home or something more, whatever it is. But I was losing my home because it's hard for me without a job to pay the mortgage or the credit line. So it's very important that you on at the beginning. Now, if you're already in the system and you already um, gone to dependency court, it's going to become too late. I mean, that's basically what's happening with me. Um, you'll find the rules in dependency court are very complicated and different from all other courts in California. All other courts. The first thing you should do if a social worker comes to speak to you or your child is to consult a law firm. And that's one thing was a mistake on my part. You don't want to have domestic violence with children are present. You don't want to be arguing in front of kids. I've already said that. And that is the common reason children are taken from their parents. If you engage in physical or verbal um, abuse, domestic violence. Now, if the petition is filed against you, the burden is on the county to prove that's true. Domestic violence with your children present. They must prove that your children are at risk of harm if they remain in your custody. Your lawyer can work with you to determine what the true facts and incidents are, and if the allegations are false and can be worked to convince the court the case should be dismissed. Now, what was really interesting in my case, and I don't think I've talked about this, but the thought just occurred to me, is that the detective in the city that I was residing in was preparing a criminal case against me. Not only was CPS investigating the criminal aspects and the detective, and I don't understand why they would do that, because the CPS already had me involved, was that they were trying to accuse me, and the city attorney wrote a letter saying you have been accused. You and your wife each have 3 counts because there was 3 children involved of negligence, and they put down sexual. Now that was really interesting because there was no sexual accusations by CPS or anything come up there, but right away the detective wanted. I found out later after a year that the sexual charges were supposed to intimidate the parents to settle something less out of court, that they dropped the sexual charges and implement the misdemeanor charges of negligence. It was all a game the city was playing. Not only was CPS bad, but the city was bad in doing that. They were building on it. So what the CPS did is said, we're going to wait to see how the outcome comes before we do that. It's similar to the case right now with this federal Supreme Court and the President Donald Trump and his stuff, that they're deciding certain cases before the other cases can handle it. So the CPS said, "Oh boy, oh joy, joy, joy! We get to keep the kids longer in custody and get the money every month for them because the parents need to take care of the civil case that the city was trying to bring against the parents. And this was against the mom and the dad, the same counts. And this went on for a year that they were trying to do that. And I had gotten an attorney I had to get another attorney because I guess the attorney I had couldn't fight it. I don't understand that, and that cost me money. But it was very little money. Compared to me, it was a lot of money, but to them, and after a year of postponements and showing up to court and showing up to court, and then CPS getting our children further and further, moving from a shelter to a group home to foster care. I mean, when uh, the advice the attorney gave me, and to this day I regret it. And I think it's because he said he was running out of money, where the case would be, because I had a relative help me with the money for this attorney. Anyway, they said you better take the offer. They're making an offer saying we'll drop the sexual charges and we'll drop all the other charges against your wife. Only you charged with negligence. Only you will be charged. You have to accept it as a misdemeanor. And they worded it very carefully. They said it could endanger the kids, the negligent charges. But CPS is jumping for joy. Why are they jumping for joy? They think they got you. They think they got you. And our third child was trying to be adopted by my wife's sister, who really shouldn't have been trying to adopt him. They were trying to not save the daughter, but they were lying. And the social worker lied on the stand. I never forget that she lied. And that's wrong. That's wrong. So I had a catch 22 that if I accepted this, it keeps my family out of there. It drops and I should never have because there's no sexual charges. There's nothing I was doing sexually with our children. Neither was my wife. I think we could have won it because it would be a jury trial. And I think they would have dismissed it based on the facts. Of course, I'd probably have to pay a lot more money for my attorney. And I don't think my attorney wanted to fight it. I don't know. I just, attorneys is a bad thing, because if you're not with them or the chemistry is right and the money's not there, they're not going to do a good job. And I knew when I hired Vincent Davis that he'd do a good job at the CPS area, but he wasn't involved in the criminal one. And so they made a big deal out of this negligence. It was really sad how they did that. And that's something I'm just realizing now talking to you. I've already talked to over 100 people and I've talked about my case so much. But I'm realizing that the criminal allegations, and you were innocent to your proven guilty, and I never had my day in court, never did my trials. I compromise. Why? Because the city was trying to do something, and I don't know what their alternative motive was. I think they're in cahoots with CPS, and CPS wanted, because they knew they had no evidence, they wanted something like negligence to be, because once you accept the misdemeanor, it means you're negligence, and then the CPS workers can do what they're doing. And I think that was part of the problem, is that I should never have. There's a lot of mistakes I made here, and I don't want you all to do the same. I don't want you doing the same. Um, you need to get an attorney first before you do anything. And that attorney, should have a dependency thing there. But if you have a criminal matter brought up to you by the city, then you're going to need a criminal attorney. And now I'm starting to be seeing the light as why sometimes they charge. It's like President Trump's got 91 charges against him, and they're hoping that one charge will stick that will make him so that he isn't on the ballot to be voted as the next president again. I mean, let the people decide. I don't know why they sit there with all these things, and the things he's doing, were stupid things he did, and I think they're exaggerating. They're all political. Well, the same thing was happening to me in the city. Not saying that I'm running for president or something. They were trying to make me look bad, my family look bad. Why? Well, I know CPS's interest in money, but I don't know why the city is. Maybe because I'd run certain events there in the city and there's harsh feelings or something. I don't know. Um, there could be something in there that I had not seen. I just starting to realize and put two to two together. Something was pushing the city to go after the same thing CPS. Why is CPS and the city doing the same thing? Um, the city was determined. Maybe they're upset because I had a beautiful home. To this day, I just don't understand. But with the time remaining, and I want to thank to have we're real human um, to uh, type a text message in there. I appreciate that. But my time has run up. I've gone an hour. And I want to thank you very much for listening. I care about you people out there, and I hope that you continue to call in and be a guest on the show and how I can help you. Good luck with your case. Don't give up. I want your new year to be much successful, and I want much happiness your way. God bless you, and I'll see you later tonight. This is Bob Pace